I am who I am, and it's tattooed on my chest, so in case I forget. You see, people that get Alzheimer's suddenly can forget their own names. But I've got mine tattooed on my chest, so if they find my body, they can identify me.
Why is your hand over your eye? Because
I'm a devil worshiper. What are you talking about?
All right, well, I have tickets to see the devil worshiper.
Well, what the 90s are going to see is a massive rise of Satanism. People are going to come out of the shadows and reveal themselves. Because what we're seeing now is the death struggle between the Judeo-Christian idea and archetype and the more ancient satanic archetype.
You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind.
I am the way, the truth, and the life.
Big Chungus has no beginning. Big Chungus has no end. Big Chungus is infinite. Millions of years after our civilization has been eradicated and forgotten, Big Chungus will endure. Big Chungus is eternal, the pinnacle of evolution and existence. We are but rudimentary creatures of blood and flesh. We touch Big Chungus' mind, fumbling in ignorance, incapable of understanding. Organic life is nothing but a genetic mutation, an accident. Our lives are measured in years and decades. We wither and die. Big Chungus is eternal. Before it, we are nothing. Big Chungus imposes order on the chaos of organic life. We exist because Big Chungus allows it, and we will end because Big Chungus demands it. Big Chungus transcends our very understanding. We cannot grasp the nature of Big Chungus' existence.
6,000 years ago, there was a problem in a country called Egypt. So they sent one of these more than 12 sons down as one ambassador from this highest family. And this guy, his name was Per Udens Ra. And he was the first Fa Ra, Father Ra, the father. One Fa Ra, one pharaoh. And this guy, he's one white guy with blue eyes, white skin, yellow hair. He's an article guy. And from the Finland, he brings down one mathematical thing called Pi Ra Mid, what we call pyramid, pyramid. And in the mathematics, if I say in Europe the sound P, they get the association of a circle, a ring. In English, we would call it pi, because we make the E to be I. So one ring is called P in our story. It's a female. So the P is the ring. Ra is the pole, the radius. In Mede, in root language, Mede means middle. So if you start from the Mede, you make one the Ra, one radius. You turn the Ra in one P, in one circle. You have one P, Ra, Mede. And all mathematics comes from a P, a Ra, in a mid-center. And Pi has to do with fire, pyro, the pyroman. It's a female symbol, the pyramid. And this Per Udens Ra, he comes down with some kind of a knowledge about how they start to build these pyramids up and down this Nile River. And he calls himself Ra, the sun. Ra makes the Ras. Ra here in India, they say Shan Ra. Shan Ra for the moon. If you look in the moon, you'll see one rabbit, one Ra beat. So Ra for us is the moon, but he calls himself Ra, the Sun King. And he goes on one big story down there. Pyramid comes from the root language, Pi, Ra, Mid. If the pyramid's like this, the point down is called Q, Ra, Mid. It's masculine if it's pointing down. If it's pointing up, it's feminine. And the fire is in the middle.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Babylon, Nimrod, Tammuz, rabbits and buffalo. In ancient Babylon, which would be located in present-day Iraq and part of Iran, the god king Nimrod, Tammuz, son of Bel, Baal, and Semiramis, Rhea, is said to have liked rabbits. Rabbits were supposedly deified because of their reproductive abilities. According to the Two Babylons, by Alexander Hislop, among the Indians of America there had evidently been something entirely analogous to the Babylonian custom of wearing the horns. For, in the buffalo dance there, each of the dancers had his head arrayed with buffalo's horns, and it is worthy of a special remark, that the satiric dance, or dance of the satyrs in Greece, seems to have been the counterpart of this American Indian solemnity, for the satyrs were horned divinities, and consequently those who imitated their dance must have had their heads set off in imitation of theirs. End quote. The god of confusion. These are just two examples of deified animal gods of the old world, repeated in the new world, and reaching back to ancient Babylon. This very same deification of animals, and nature itself, extends deep into the American Indian culture, predating Columbus and Christianity, by hundreds, if not thousands of illusory years. It's this worship of the earth, the animals, the water, the sky and nature itself, that is the very same dogma and doctrine of the environmental green movement that has been thrust upon the world, under the guise of preserving the world for subsequent generations. In reality, this is the Luciferian, Illuminati agenda, whereby the father god of Babylon, Bel, the god of confusion, the complete egregore thought form, conjured up the religious, intellectual systems of the world, to enslave and control our very being, by manipulating humanity into passionately desiring to maintain the 3D illusory world. The following text will show how the Babylonian religion of the mother and child was established thousands of years ago in the Americas. This is the religion of Semiramis and Tammuz, Ninus or Nimrod, or Mary and Jesus, etc. This religion would lie dormant, waiting to be used to manipulate, through confusion, or, as the Wizard of Oz, works his sacred secret mystery at this illusory moment in time. Hiawatha, high water, rabbits, wombats. Approximately 600-900 years ago, depending on the version of the story, a native North American Iroquois prophet from the Mohawk tribe, named Hiawatha, was credited with uniting the 5 Iroquois nations, the Senecas, Cayugas, Onondagas, Oneidas and the Mohawks into one unified group, to stand together against their common enemies. This agreement was called the Great Law of Peace. These native people lived on the east coast of America, in what is now New York State. This unification, or union, is considered to be the forerunner of the American Constitution, which would see separate states drawn together to form the United States of America. This is exactly the same unification principle used by Muhammad in the 7th century, where he brought about the union of the warring Arab tribes to create a single unified state. Unification through manipulation and deceit is a characteristic of Islamic dogma, which is simply one term to describe sun god worship dogma. This unification was used as a smokescreen to establish the Islamic religion, hiding who and what was really behind the rise of Islam. The Luciferian thinkers were the ones who were really behind the rise of Islam, working through the Judeo-Christian elite, passing on the mystery religion principles of the Kabbalah. This very same principle is being applied in the very illusory moment we find ourselves in. The rise of the environmental green movement is acting as a smokescreen for the solidification of sun god worship throughout the world, which again is based on the principles of the Kabbalah. This entrenching is meant to perpetuate the agenda in an infinite cycle of deceit, distraction, despair and death. Iroquois equals IROC equals IROC water. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote a poem called The Song of Hiawatha. Unfortunately for the people of the world, this poem wasn't really about the Iroquois prophet Hiawatha, but about a North American native god called Nanabozho. But for 150 years, historians puzzled over attempting to coordinate the deeds of Hiawatha with the deeds of Nanabozho. Eventually, the confusion was resolved. This is just one more example of how the god of confusion, the Luciferian thinkers, arranged the most bizarre incidents to confound the masses, thereby creating endless distraction. The name of Hiawatha was invoked because of the subliminal message attached to it, and its total agreement with the Luciferian agenda of the global flood. Hiawatha equals higher water equals higher water. Nanabozho was equated with Egyptian god Thoth, who has been credited with creating virtually every three-dimensional system and function within the 3D world. Nanabozho was described as the creator of the earth. This is similar to the story of Jesus, who was one with the Father, just as the neutron and proton are one in the nucleus, who was the creator of heaven and earth. Even though most denominations give credit to the Father only for creation, in actual practice, the Christian belief is firmly, though subconsciously adhered to, that Jesus was with the Father in the creation of the world. Nanabozho had an earthly mortal mother, called Wanandwaya, or Mishabus, which literally meant nourishment. This nourishment is, of course, the mother's milk. The name Wanandwaya comes from the Lakota Indian tribe, also called the Dakota, Teton, or Teton Sioux tribes. These tribes lived in the area of what is today the states of North and South Dakota, Montana and Wyoming. For thousands of years, they worshipped Nanabozho, Wanandwaya, and Ebangishimog, Father, as a Trinity Godhead. This nourishment concept, and the name Wanandwaya, is inspired by the breast-shaped mountain range called the Grand Teton Range, which have no foothills leading up to the mountains themselves. Just like a woman's breasts, they rise immediately from the base of the surrounding terrain. 3 of the main peaks of the Grand Tetons were also called Les Trois Tetons, or the Three Breasts, by subsequent French explorers to the area, echoing the nourishment of the Mother of God. The name Tetons was originally intended to describe several hills near the town of Arco, Idaho. They were named by a French trapper who thought that they resembled the female body. Ergo Tetons, the French word for nipples or teats. Many years later the name was mistakenly applied to the mountains of present-day Grand Teton National Park due to poor map-making/map reading standards of the time. The Teton Sioux name relates to the Grand Teton Range, or the Grand Teats of the Mother of God, who, as mentioned, was Wanandwaya the nourishment, referring to the mother's milk. Nanabozho's father was a spirit father called Ebangishimog, which literally means, in the West. This spirit father coincides with the great Manita mentioned above, who coincides with Jehovah, Allah, etc. Nanabozho was symbolized by the great hare, great rabbit, or simply, a rabbit. The Hebrew word for rabbit is anabet, anabet equals anrabet equals rabbit, and means behold the light, which is the all-seeing eye, or eye of light. The father, or rabbi, of the light. Nanabozho is pronounced as Nanabozho in the first person. In the third person, this name is pronounced Wanabozho. In the Null person, this name is pronounced Manabozho. Sometimes, depending on the story, it may be pronounced as Nanaboz. Yet again, in actual dialect pronunciation, the two O's sound like O equals Nanabuzhu. In some dialects the ZH equals Z equals Nanabuz. Still other dialects reduce the first A, and pronounce the name as Wabuz, finally arriving at the word rabbit associated with the symbol for this god. Wabuz equals Wabuts equals Wabuts equals rabbits. This is simply a long drawn-out explanation to show how the Luciferian mindset has developed a subliminal message used extensively within the English-speaking society, that manipulates humanity to repeat a hypnotic suggestion endlessly, without the slightest notion of so doing. The letters will have been replaced for the letters Ra. The letters Ra refer to the sun god Ra, sometimes spelled Re. Ra or Re mean the same thing, and from a subliminal perspective mean the same thing as what. The letters Wa refer to the way of the cross, the correct way to live one's life, and that way is to be filled with the Holy Spirit, the living water. Wa equals way equals wa equals water, water equals water equals wati or. What's being demonstrated here is that the letters Wa, Ra, and Re are subliminal suggestions referring to water. For instance, when the word tower is read, the suggestion is hidden, but extremely discernible to the subconscious mind as tower equals water equals water. From this, the meaning of the World Trade Center towers is implanting the suggestion of the towers or waters that will fall on the Marriott Hotel, which in turn is the state of California. By extension, the letters Ra and Re refer to God, the King, and gives way to the concept of the word Ro, from which the word royal is derived. The letters Ra, Re, and Ro are all subliminals, suggesting water. From this interconnection, such mindless little ditties as row 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 your boat, conjured up by the Luciferian thinkers, program the human subconscious mind to respond in a senseless trance, and establish our reality completely geared to including a great flood and devastation. Row 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 your boat, gently down the stream, down into the underworld merrily, 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 mercy, 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 thank you. Life is but a dream, life is but a trance. From this linking of short word and sound subliminal suggestion, the name of the World Trade Center towers takes on a new significance. World equals row, LD equals water, roll trade equals sacrifice, cross of time, water of death, center equals CI, sacrifice, cross of time, of water, towers equals sacrifice, cross of time, of water. Of course, none of this makes any sense from a logical, rational perspective. However, we're not talking about logic here, not in the least. We're talking about how it is that the Luciferian, light-bringing thinkers, used Freemasonic, Islamic, Jewish, Christian, Mormon, Jehovah's intellectual religious puppets to establish a hypnotic trance state called the three-dimensional experience, to distract and disconnect and to bring suffering, misery and the illusory death experience.
What of the pious, the pure of heart, the peaceful? What of the meek, the mourning, and the merciful? All doomed, all doomed. Behold a new Christ, behold the same old horde. Gather at the altar ring, new beginning, new word. And the word was death, and the word was without light. The new beatitude, good luck. What of the pious, the pure of heart, the peaceful? What of the meek, the mourning, and the merciful? What of the righteous? What of the charitable? What of the truthful, the dutiful, the decent?